Okay, great. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm working the slides, so please be patient with me. It's new for me. But anyway, welcome for this webinar. I am going to, first of all, address a question that some people have asked. Why do an African American perspective on self-care? And so the basic reason is, a primary reason is that the unique positionality of African Americans as descendants of slavery and the devastating effects of non-self care for centuries that's been imposed by institutionalized racism, and that has the rationale in itself for addressing self care from this particular cultural lens. Additionally, the invalidating non-human messages that African Americans propagated through structural racism, legal systems, and racist ideology that give power to oppress this population on every societal level. So the harmful effects of these legalized constructs have continually been passed down through generations to oppress and suppress and depress African Americans. So that is why we're looking at this particular topic from an African American perspective, or through the lens of the culture of African Americans. Let's see if I can do the next slide. There we go. So according to the Center for Disease Control, racism and poverty are societal induced stressors that appear as factors that impact the quality of life for African Americans, including lower life expectancy and healthcare disparities, which most of us are very familiar with in this work that we do. Additionally, the direct cause for standards of living being much lower for Blacks than non-Blacks in education, employment, earnings, and psychological and physical health. Racism is also a direct cause for physical and mental unrest, to include the absence of safety and security for many Blacks in this country, and particularly in the climate that we are seeing right now with the pandemic. African American psychologist Don Locke speaks on how these constant and persistent stressors in everyday life take a toll on many African Americans, resulting in a depletion of their psychological, cognitive, and spiritual energies. So those that are impacted most by racism, and it's the form that we consider, as me being African American, I see this, and it's a personal thought that I want to interject here, and feel free to comment. But I see racism as an underlying poison that feeds inequality and injustice, and it fuels the operation of oppression and exploitation. I see it as something that stems, and this is also in the literature, so this is not just my opinion, but racism stems from white supremacy, and it exists on the individual, institutional, and cultural levels of society. Someone once said that there's a changing same of race in America. Terry, have you heard that term before?
No, I haven't. I have not heard that.
I don't know if any, I can't see the chat, guys, so I don't know if you've heard that term before. I know that it's been said quite a bit, but what it means is that racism just seems to change its form, but not its intent, and it continues to be a main source of stress to many people of color. I'll give an example. For example, when President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, it prohibited discrimination in the sale, rental, and housing of housing for finances for African Americans. But that phrase, the changing same of race in America, remains because it's 2020 and there's little that has changed in terms of equity and equality for Blacks in those particular areas. So basically, that's the premise of that. And we know, too, that You can't legislate hearts. I mean, what you believe, what you follow, the values that you have, all of us, these are things that are ingrained through our environment, our, families, and just what we're exposed to in our experiences. But one thing for sure is that the change needs to happen, right? That there needs to be a change, and I believe that that is coming about, hopefully, in our lifetime.
Yeah. And as you say, it's pretty much saying the more things change, the more things remain the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a little something from a book that I purchased a couple of months ago it's called White Fragility. And the author is Robin DiAngelo. And some examples that I'm going to read to you kind of goes with what Gloria is talking about. Um, I'm going to start out, and it says, 10 richest Americans, the 10 richest Americans, 100% white, seven of whom among the 10 richest in the world. U.S. Congress, 90% white. U.S. governors, 96% white. Top military advisors, 100% white. President and vice president, 100% white. U.S. House Freedom Caucus, 99% white. Current U.S. presidential cabinet, 90%, 91% white. People who decide which TV shows we see is 90% white. People who decide which books we read is 90% white. People who decide which news is covered is 85% white. People who decide which music is produced is 95% white. People who direct the 1% top grossing film of all time worldwide is 95% white. Teachers, 82% white. And full-time college professors, 84% white. And lastly, owners of men's professional football teams, 97% white. So some of those statistics that you were talking about earlier, the more things change, the more things remain the same in some instances.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That I hope that you can put that book title in the chat so that some of us can kind of get that, because it sounds like something that we could benefit from reading. Thanks for sharing that, Terry.
Mhm.
I want to talk a little bit. Let me see. Let me go back down here. I want to share a few stats from Pew Research, and this is their 2019 Race in America report, and it further substantiates the harmful impact of racism. The first fact there is that 6 in 10 U.S. adults say legacy of slavery affects Black people's position in society. And so even based on what Terry just shared, we can see that, Black people are not in those positions of authority. 76% Blacks say that they have experienced discrimination or have been treated unfairly due to their race. Only 67%, well, not only, but 67% say they've never, ever experienced that type of discrimination. 4 in 10 Blacks say that they have been unfairly stopped by police or feared for their lives for personal safety. 40% of those that are incarcerated in our country are Black men and women, and that is sometimes referred to now as the new form of slavery, which is mass incarceration and police militarization, which is also now a huge conglomerate of operating again on that changing same of race principle of the Jim Crow era. In the context of population, just to get a better understanding of that, the 2015 census estimated that whites accounted for about 77% of the U.S. population. Blacks only make up 13.3% of the total U.S. population. So you can see that 40% of incarcerated people being Black and Black men and women is totally disproportionate in number. And to learn more about that, I don't know I don't know if you've seen the documentary 13th, but it definitely gives a real eye-opening understanding of what that whole business looks like. So next, I want to talk a little bit about safety for the African Americans, especially as it regards to COVID-19. Again, according to Terry,
Yeah.
you want to share that?
So regarding the safety for African American health in COVID-19 pandemic, about 1 in 3 people were hospitalized from COVID-19 were African Americans, according to recent hospital data from the CDC. The total of U.S. population is 13% versus 76% white, and the total of COVID hospitalized is 33% versus the 45% with white.
Yes. So here again, definitely reveals a disproportionate number of Blacks, and this is also part of the health disparities that we're all seeing now in the news that's been amplified because of COVID. Let's see. Did I go too fast? Okay, yeah. So in addition, we can see why there's a critical and urgent need then for self-care in the African American population based on those stats from the Center for Disease Control. But additionally, these stats were, I think, very critical to show the need, the urgent need for self-care, for sanity and safety in particular. 70% of all the deaths among young people that are Black young men are sudden and often violent, and homicide is the leading cause of death for that age group of 15 to 34, which is really alarming and very disheartening. You look at the poverty rate, it's 2 times that of all other households in the U.S. The unemployment rate for Blacks is twice that of whites, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. Infant mortality for Blacks is twice that of whites. And then the research also shows that even among the most successful and affluent Black men that earn $75,000 a year or more, 6 in 10 of those men reported being victims of racism or having someone close to them murdered or incarcerated. So these are not the kinds of stats that we want to see, but this is what is, and that is why the need for self-care for this population is so critical. Yeah. So in today's climate, the primary 2 areas that we're looking at for concern is first safety, living without harassment and potential harm or even death from law personnel, and then secondly, the whole panic and unfortunate advent of the pandemic, which is COVID-19, trying to avoid the risk of that and infection for that. Yeah. Did you want to say something on that too?
I did. And I would suggest to everybody, due to the fact that we're starting to open back up in our community, we just need to make sure that we move very slowly, just because it tells us that we can go out and we can do certain things and go back into restaurants. We still just want to be very mindful of COVID and what's going on, especially with us being such a high population of people who contract it. We still want to be safe and make sure we distance and do all the things we need to do.
Amen. Yeah, that is very true. I know that I'm seeing people who are not doing that, who are just kind of disregarding that and not seeing the seriousness of it. But like you said, within our African American communities, because we are at high risk for infection for this, that we need to be even more aware and, make sure that we are protecting ourselves, through this pandemic. So thank you, Terry. I want to show these fellows. I thought they were so cute. But
Mhm.
based on what I've shared so far, just on Black boys, we can see the projected future of these young men that appears to await them unless change happens, unless this changing same of race changes in our country. Their lives matter too. And the past definitely informs the present, and the present reality informs our future. And with the current climate, again, of a heightened sense of awakening, really, which is a great thing that's happening in our country, the present can lead to a future where young Black boys and girls don't have to fear, that they can feel safe and be protected wherever they are. So I know this is my prayer, but I pray it is also the hope collectively of all of us who want to see things change. Now I want to just look at self care for sanity, which focuses on the mental and emotional domains of our personage. Um, Dr. Patrice Harris, the past head of the American Medical Association, talked about toxic stress affecting Blacks from a structural and systemic racism experience. She says that African Americans should try to take care of themselves as best as they can and try to seek help when they need to. With COVID 19, again, disproportionately affecting Black people and the constant ongoing racially motivated behaviors that they are experiencing, there is definitely a higher level of psychological distress that African Americans are prone to. Many of these stressors we know are pre existing, as COVID has only amplified those that we already know about, meaning the health comorbidities and those kinds of chronic illnesses that are higher numbered in African American families. So, what we want to do now is just kind of let you tell us a little bit about how you start your day.
Yeah. So for some in the audience, what is the first thing you do in the morning when you wake up? What is, from one of the questions, what is the first thing that some of you all may do?
I'll just mention that how we start our day actually can is a prelude to feelings that can either increase our anxiety or lessen it. So I'm curious to see how everybody starts their day, and these are just some ways.
Well, from some of the people in the audience, someone listens to music, they drink water, pray
Okay.
and meditate, which is a good one.
Yes.
Um, they grab their phone, lay quietly and still,
Yes.
start thinking about everything on their agenda. And that's a person by the name of Suzanne.
Okay.
Yeah, so Suzanne has some good things. Look around the garden, that's good.
That's
Look at the ceiling and thank God that I am alive and that He has kept me through the night and has provided a roof over my head.
oh
So
yes.
those are some good things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I see somebody said that they set up the coffee, which, I have some real good friends. They won't do anything before they have that first cup of coffee in the morning. But all of those things are, just whatever we need to do though to start our day, but just being mindful that some things can ignite more anxiety in us than other things. So it's kind of good if we can to do the thing that's going to lessen our anxiety because of the day. We know the news, but we'll get into that on our 7 steps, and we'll do that at the end.
Yeah.
But yes,
And
so
our
what?
second question to everyone is, what do you do to maintain sanity? I have to say one of the things that I like to do is work out.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
I
What
go
about,
walking. I
okay.
walk. That's my way, and just watching nature, watching the squirrels, the birds, and just insects, but not too close. I don't want them getting close to me. But I
Yeah.
just enjoy watching nature. It is a way for me to kind of come down from all of the work that I do and the deadlines and all of that. Yeah. So.
Anyone else? Can anyone else talk about what they do to maintain sanity? Uh, Listen to music and dance.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds fun.
Okay. Listen to gospel, Christian music,
Yes.
meditate, dancing,
Yes.
listening, and to escape from TV. Absolutely, you have to unplug.
Oh,
Someone
yeah.
else someone else does yoga, walk.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of
Nice.
different things that we do. Hmm.
Y- Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks for participating and sharing what you do for Sanity, and also how you lessen anxiety in your life when you wake up in the morning or whenever you get up. The next thing we want to do, we're almost to the end, but this part, let's see if I can go to the next slide. Okay, here we are. And thanks for bearing with me. I'm new at this on maneuvering the slides, but the final part of this presentation is going to actually focus on spiritual wellness as a measure to maintain our sanity and balance in turbulent times. And again, we know that spirituality is a very, very personal ideological phenomenon, and therefore different for different people based upon their own belief systems or lack thereof. But even within the African American population, there are multiple spiritual and religious beliefs, and there are those who don't profess any type of belief. But according to Pew Research, more Black people are likely to be Christian and Protestant in their faith, and about 78% of them believe in God with absolute authority. So that's a pretty high number. And so that's why I have included this part in this presentation on wellness, is because of that spiritual connection within many African Americans, their belief systems. Belgrave, let's see, the actual meaning of, I will just read the slide just to give a preface here. The word spirit comes from the Latin word spiritus, referring to breath, spirit, and life force. And people can understand spirit literally or metaphorically to refer to that which gives them vitality and drive for meaning and transcendence. And that just means that, again, like I said earlier, that we all have our own way of being spiritual, and I don't claim to know all of that, but I do say that we are all familiar with what's our way of doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I wanted to share a quote from Belgrave and Allison, the authors of the book, The African American Psychology from Africa to America. And it states, and I quote, among African Americans, spirituality is an important part of one's life, regardless of circumstances. Spirituality exists across all socioeconomic levels, age groups, and geographic locations. African Americans are more likely to use spirituality as a framework for coping with stressful circumstances such as chronic illness and disabling conditions, end of quote. I'd like to, at this point, just share Kanda, who is an author, and he writes about what healthy spirituality is in his book. And he says that healthy spirituality is engendering one's virtues, such as compassion and justice, as well as the relational webs of caring, respect, and support that extends outside or outward to other human beings. I like that one, and I wanted to, in that context, just share with you in closing 7 recommendations that may be helpful in maintaining sanity, safety, physical safety, and spiritual wellness in turbulent times. Let's see if I can do that. There we go. And so these are the 7. And of course, we already talked about number 1, limiting how much news you watch and intake daily. It's pretty hard to do, I'm sure, because there's all of these different ways of getting information, and we want to stay in the know. We've got the television, we got the computer, our cell phone, social media, text messages, phone calls, and almost by osmosis that we're starting to just be inundated with news all the time. So I feel that quieting our minds from that constant chatterbox of information is essential to our mental health and to help maintain our sanity. So when you put whatever you put into your mind, it feeds your soul. And so ingesting too much negativity, even if it's true news and sensationalized messaging, it can weigh very heavy on your mind and your emotions. So that's the first step, is to kind of watch that. The second thing is just to be aware of your emotional shifts that invoke anxiety and anger. So many of the atrocities that have been happening to Black people in the past are still happening, and we're seeing this. And this awareness can start to consume us with increased anxiety and worry and even anger. But expressing our feelings is very important to wellness in that regard, not to hold those feelings in, regardless of what they are, but to be mindful of who we're talking to. We've seen recently some social media posts that were done on Facebook by professional individuals who spoke out of something in their hearts that was very derogatory and negative and dehumanizing to people of color. And so things like that. Social media is not a safe place to vent. And so the encouragement here is that it's important to make sure that when you're in those states of rage or upset about things, that you talk with someone about those emotions, with someone you trust, versus posting it blindly on Facebook or any of the social media outlets, because it can be copied and not representing exactly what you meant to say. And so it's just fallout that you can avoid. So that's the recommendation for two, is just to be aware of those emotional pulls at you, and to just get that out of you, but to talk with someone you trust and someone that can help you work through those feelings. The third thing is to be open and willing to have honest conversations, heart to heart talks, if you will, with others who may not have the same color skin that you have, but they want the same things. They want to see justice. They want to see equity for everyone, just like you do. So the outpouring of solidarity for equality and equity for Black people is really being highlighted and amplified across racial divides throughout the country right now. And this is very encouraging to see, where people of all creeds and ages and diverse ethnic groups are coming together and saying that enough is enough of this behavior that we've seen that's racially motivated, and then the disparities that we are now seeing more visibly due to COVID. So being Oh, Terry, you want to say something? I kind of can run
Yeah,
out.
that's all right. I was saying that's correct, and I think the beauty in what's going on right now is that it's worldwide. It's not just
Yes,
confined to America. It is worldwide. This
yes,
transition that we're going through right now.
yes, absolutely. And when we're open and willing to have those heart-to-heart those, and those are difficult conversations. We've seen that. We know that. I know in my own life that has been a difficult conversation. I had someone who is white, a white male, a friend, call me after all of this started to come out around George Floyd, and he felt really bad about that, and he seemed to feel guilt on his shoulders for that. And so, like I was saying, being able to willingly, openly talk about things that are bothering you with someone you trust. He could trust me. I'm not judgmental. I'm not going to attack him. I wanted to hear what he said, and then I was able to, let him know that, yeah, I appreciate your support in that feeling, but not to dismiss someone else, or to not listen to them because they are not like you. I think that's really key in us developing a stronger country, really, stronger relationships with others, and keeping the spirit of unity, and having a bond of peace in that process. So, yeah. Any other comments that are being said in the chat for that, or if I'll go on to the next one. If not, the number 4 is just to practice self-care. Very simple. Take time to rest, eat healthy, exercise, drink plenty of water. Be kind and loving to yourself. The truth is, we only get one life to live, and this is it. This is it. And so taking time to nourish and refresh yourself is very important. Our bodies require that. They need that. We do a lot. We're always doing. We're, always going. We're always being. But even more so in these uncertain times where we're in a pandemic, it's really critical to look after ourselves and to take care of ourselves and whatever that appears to be for you. For me, it's walking, it's taking a long bath. Sometimes it's just, watching a movie that's funny, or just kind of not doing anything, just listening to music, but finding ways to nurture and love yourself and self-care. Number 5, we need to continue practicing safe social distance protocols. COVID-19 is still killing mostly Black and brown people. And even though cure, there's no cure as of yet. Some people, like we talked about a little earlier, are still taking great risk and ignoring the fact that this is still a pandemic and this is a disease that can kill, and putting not only themselves at risk, but people that they love at risk as well. So that's really important. I think in avoiding the large crowds, just following the protocols that are in place as best as they can be for us to be conscious of practicing safety while we're going through the pandemic. Gary, did you want to add anything around that? I know you had mentioned about the mask and the gloves.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we just want to be mindful, and it's very difficult right now due to the fact that the weather's warm, and we want to get out and be in that weather. But right now, and we just need to just be very mindful, because we're going to be going into an upswing here soon too, unfortunately. So we just want to continue to do all best practices.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then number 6 and 7 kind of go together, but 6 is just staying connected with your higher power, your creator, in a continual communion, if you will. That's just to nourish your spirit, however you define or see that. But it can be very healing process for your emotions and your mental wellness, just to have that calmness of spirit happening in your life. And lastly, just being grateful and remain hopeful. I remember you mentioned one of the chat responses was just being thankful for being alive, and being thankful for things having a roof over your head and all of those things. Absolutely agree with that we are to be grateful in those things that we do have, and be thankful for those, and to remain hopeful that we will come through this pandemic. We will come through this. We've come through other major things in our society, and we will come through this. I'm not sure when, but we'll just remain hopeful that it won't be as long as they think it will be.
Yeah.
In closing, there's a couple of things I want to just point out. And then I'm open for questions too. If you have questions or you want to talk about anything in particular that I've said, I'd love to be able to respond to you according to that. But I wanted to just say that we are more than what we are doing in our lives, that we are also who we are being in our lives. And we forget sometimes that we are limited by time and space, and that life is not certain past the moments that we have right now in the here and now. So I do encourage you, this slide, I love this message on this quote, and to encourage you to treat your own self with the love and compassion that you share with others in your work, just to be mindful that to take care of yourself first, so that you won't, because if you don't, you won't have anything left to to take care of others. So I love that quote, and I wanted to kind of close with that. And my closing is this one. I wanted to close with this campaign from the NAACP in a message that's in its entirety, because everything that I've presented today is summed up in this message by the NAACP, that we are done dying. Pretty profound statement. The truth is, though, if we don't take care of ourselves, who will do it for us? Self care is imperative to self preservation. We must maintain our sanity, our safety, and our spiritual wellness in these turbulent times. Our minds and our bodies and our souls are ours alone, and therefore our responsibility to protect and preserve. Earlier, I didn't get to mention about the black ex-police chief in Detroit, Michigan, who his name is Isaac McKinnon, and he talked about how he had even been stopped. He's a black man. How he had even been stopped by his own police officers because of him being black, and so he mentioned that a quote, and that I want to share in my closing today for all of us to think about in terms of making this a better world. He said, in reference to the murder of George Floyd, this quote: "Now is the time for a meaningful change so that no one, especially Black men and women, has to ever again think that could have been me."
Mm-hmm.
Thank
That is profound. That is profound. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you so much. And we are ending our conversation right now. If anybody had any questions or any comments that they wanted to make, we're looking for that in the chat box. Otherwise, we're going to end, and we are trying. Gloria and I have been working together for quite some time, and looking forward to continuing working together throughout the year and next year and for years to come.
you.
So let's see, what are there? Suzanne is saying, as someone who benefits from white privilege, what I can do to express my newly gained understanding to the extent that I can truly understand. How can I show support rooted in deep empathy for my friends of color?
And that
So pretty much, Suzanne is asking, what is it that she can do now that she has a really good understanding, and how can she express her newly gained understanding?
wow. Well, first I congratulate you in just being willing and ready to make that step. Anti-racism is a stance, and so the way that, and as a black person, I'm sure I don't know what it is to be on the other side, but I would say that like my white friend came to me, I feel like friends transcend that whole thing that you're this and I'm that. I believe that if you are speaking the truth in love and you are sharing your heart and you are asking them, what they want to see, what they believe is important, is in terms of how you can help. I believe people will receive that. Your friends will receive that coming from you because first of all, you are friends with them and you have a heart to do things in the right way. And again, we are all needing this step of humanity to come up and step up to the plate to just acknowledge what is, and how do we move past that by making amends to what can be. So yes, just be who you are, share your heart with your friends, and I believe you'll see some wonderful outcomes from that.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add to that, and that is to say, as Gloria was saying, with you being friends with them, people know when you're organic.
Yes.
And they will know that. They will feel that. So, having said that, if there was anyone else that had anything to say, we're waiting for a couple of minutes for that. Otherwise, we're going to be closing out. And it doesn't look like it. Maybe it'll be some questions later. So at this time, again, I'd like to thank Gloria. Looking forward to many more um, conversations and chats with you. And at this time, Beza, I would like
Yeah.
for her to put on a video for us. And also thank you to everyone, and I hope everyone enjoyed this chat that we had with Gloria, and we will continue these types of chats in the future.
Yes. Thank you so much, ladies. I love this content itself. I think self-care is definitely important. I'm going to go ahead and share a video at the request of Terry right now. So stick with us, please, to watch this video. At the same time, my colleague is also going to share a link to an evaluation form, which I highly, highly encourage you to take a few minutes to complete. And it helps us improve our program. So definitely, please go ahead and complete that evaluation form. All right, now let's share the video. Oh, you also you can ask any questions. You have us for 15 minutes. So if you have anything really, just now is your opportunity to ask Gloria or Terry. With me. Okay.
I can't hear.
We can't hear Beza.
Can you not hear the audio?
No.
Okay, give me a second, please. I apologize.
Mm.
Bear with me a second, please. How about now?
No, we can't.
Mm. So I'm going to share the link to this video as well, so you can maybe click on it and watch it on your own as well. Technology sometimes doesn't go our way.
Yeah, and like I said, you can go. I guess we can go ahead and close out since you're not able to pull the video up, and we can just go from there. It would have just been so much timing with the content of what we had, but
Yes.
sometimes it doesn't go that way. So we can just wrap up. It was 10 minutes left, and thank everyone.
Absolutely.
Again.
I think what we're going to do is, it is unfortunate that we cannot experience this music, watch this video together and really discuss about it, but I'm going to share it in my follow-up, and I really do encourage you to watch it on your own, to kind of put what Gloria and Terry shared with us into perspective. I know Michael Jackson is a very not it could be a divisive person, but at the same time, this is a music video that transcends, I think, some of the stuff um, that has happened. So I thank you all for being here with us. If you have any questions that went unanswered, or you want to ask it directly to our presenter, you can send it to me in the follow-up email, which I'm going to send after this is over. I'll also share some of the PowerPoints and any resources that were shared during this webinar. So if you don't have any questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up right now. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.